A Shalom Akim, Shalom, Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua for me. Listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I was just going through a couple accounts here, and one of the words that stuck out to me was remembrance, and I kind of just wanted to touch on two quick accounts here of our forefathers being in different situations. When we see the landscape of what's going on in the world, and the different plagues that are coming upon this spiritual Sodom and Egypt, also known as America, our mindset is, Lord Baba Kasha, please remember us in times of trouble, because it doesn't make a difference how much money we have, or the fancy job, or whatever thing that we have, right? The scriptures say that riches profit not in a day of wrath, but righteousness can deliver from death, right? So we want the Lord to remember us, in those times of trouble, famine, calamity, as the scriptures say. Also, as when iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold, right? To roughly paraphrase, right? So let's get the word remembrance, and I sincerely pray that this lesson is edifying, right? So it says, here I have an etymology. Remember, it means to keep or bear something or someone in mind. It says retain in the memory, preserve unforgotten, remember, recall, bring to mind, recall to mind. Again, so means back, and bringing back that a memory of this person, right? It says recall to mind, bring again to the memory. It says in the late 14th century, the sense of to mention is from the 1550s. It says to remind someone, bring back the memory of something to someone, give an account, narrate. It says, so that's pretty much it. Just bringing into account, being mindful, and we want the Lord, Lord's will, that He has mercy upon us as we see these different types of plagues that are plaguing this world, this society, right? So, and then taking this opportunity of the Lord to remember our good deeds also, right? Scriptures say that a tree is known by its fruit, and an evil tree cannot bring forth good fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth neither can a good tree bring forth corrupt fruit, to roughly paraphrase, right? And when you go into that word fruit, it goes into the word in the Greek karpos, meaning works or deeds, right? So let me just jump, let me go to Psalms, and I'll get my first account here. Psalms 125. Okay, this is Psalms 125, verse 4, and it says, do good, O Lord, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, unto those that be good, and to them that are upright in their hearts, in their minds, right? Verse 5, and it says, as for such as turn aside unto their crooked ways, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai shall lead them forth with with the workers of iniquity, but peace shall be upon Israel. So we want the Lord to, have, do good unto us, remember us, right? To take care of us, right? And in scriptures, and this is something that King David said actually, he said, I have never seen the righteous forsaken or his seed begging bread, right? So remember us, your house of David, um, in these times, because these times are very evil, right? They're very dark. You start to see a lot of our people, taking this opportunity to essentially, when they hear about the message, they scoff at the message, and they're pretty much this. They're typing their ways and they're speaking their ways into destruction, right? Because the scriptures, talks about how there are some that are going to be numbered to the sword, dogs to tear, and so forth, right? So the Lord is going to have many different ways he's going to punish a good mass majority of our people, but we want the Lord to remember us in those times, right? So this account came into my mind earlier, so I'm just going to read it in the NLT here just a little bit, just to kind of get a context of the good deeds that were being shown forth, right? As well as seeing the nature of our people and in the ways that they were behaving too, right? Because the things that are, the scriptures say that the things that are written aforetime are also written for our learning, right? And we're seeing that there's only a very small few of our people, a remnant, that's conducting themselves in a healthy fear of the Lord, while the mass majority of our people are pretty much using the opportunity, the grace, to be able to scoff, make fun of the prophets, essentially dive and double down in wickedness and so on and so forth, right? So I'm just going to read this here. This is Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 14, and it says, remember this good deed, O my power Yahweh, and do not forget. I'm reading in the NLT, by the way, and it says, O my power Yahweh, and do not forget all that I have faithfully done for the temple of my power and its services. In those days I saw men of Judah treading their wine presses on the Sabbath. They were also bringing in grain, loading it on donkeys, bringing their wine, grapes, figs, and all sorts of produce to Jerusalem to sell on the Sabbath. So I rebuked them for selling their produce on that day. Some men of Tyre, whom lived in Jerusalem, were bringing in fish and all kinds of merchandise. They were selling it on the Sabbath to the people of Judah and in Jerusalem at that, right? So essentially, Nehemiah is in a situation where, okay, you're being called back, to help rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And then also you're starting to see a lot of the wicked behaviors of a lot of our people. Other situations he had to deal with in regards to our people, committing usury upon our own people, taking advantage of their own kin, their own brethren. He had to deal with reproach. He had to deal with enemies coming up and mocking him, right? So he had a lot to deal with, but all in all, one of the reoccurring messages throughout I noticed in his book was this message of, Lord, remember me these good deeds that I have done, right? That was like a reoccurring theme over and over again, and it also solidified it also in the 5th chapter as well, because he didn't want to put a lot of pressure, financial pressure upon his own people, because they realized they needed help, right? And it's pretty much the same sentiment, we're trying to do, uprightly in this time, and then we're trying to be able to, give our people this spiritual food to be able, so they can be stable in these times, right? So they can be fed, so that we can be, have a closer relationship with the Lord, as opposed to being like the guy in the parable of the it was the parable with the guy with, he had the big storehouses, right? And his mindset was, and that's the mass majority of our people when you really think about it. Their mindset is to acquire a lot of substance, physical substance, right? And at the end of the day, he had very little. He had a very uh, uh, unintimate, if that's a word. He didn't have a very close relationship with the Lord, right? But he had a lot of barns, he had a lot of ambition and so on and so forth, but he didn't have that intimacy with Yahweh Shai, right? So the point is, Nehemiah calling on our, remember, asking the Lord, Yahweh Shai, remember me in those times. And you start to see the other side of it also, because he constantly had to rebuke a lot of the people around him for committing different acts that were angering the Lord, right? And it's the same sentiment, right? Telling the prophets, using his messengers to not just have compassion on his people, but at the same time to, turn back to the Lord, so you can actually have a relationship, so he can remember you in those times, right? But the scriptures also say that in their affliction they shall seek me early. And Jake has a mindset where only in the moments of affliction they only think about the Most High, right? So so let me go to, 1 second. So let me see. Actually, I'm gonna get this in. Just bear with me on this. Okay, so this is Bell and the Dragon, the first chapter. I'll start at 29, but the point's in 38, so I'm just gonna read down, right? Just to kind of set the tone of what, to convey, a different avenue of, the Lord remembering us, right? This is verse 29, and it says, so they came to the king and said, deliver us, Daniel, or else we will destroy thee in thine house. Now when the king saw that they were pressed him sore, being constrained, they delivered Daniel unto them, who cast him into a den, into the lion's den, where he was 6 days. And in the den there were 7 lions, and they were given them every day 2 carcasses and 2 sheep. So carcass is kind of like a dead body, essentially, right? So it says, which then were not given to them to the intent they might devour Daniel. Now there was there was in Jewry a prophet named Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had a broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field to bring it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said to Habakkuk, go carry the dinner that thou hast in Babylon unto Daniel, who is in the lion's den. And Habakkuk said, Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. And the angel of the Lord took him by the crown, and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemency of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. So essentially, Habakkuk, was taken, and, he had some food. Daniel's in a predicament where he actually needs some, he needs some sustenance, right? He needs protection, right? So here, the Lord sends, somebody to kind of intervene and actually look out for him, right? So this is verse 37, and it says, and Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which the Most High Yahweh hath sent thee. And Daniel said, Thou hast remembered me, O Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, neither thou hast forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. Right? So here it is. The Lord created a way in the midst of his tribulation, in the midst of his trouble, right? In this particular situation, that's probably a very tense situation, right? That was a very, very tense situation. You're looking at lions, right? And if you could just paint a picture too, lions were probably even much, much bigger back then, and they're eating a lot healthier back then. They're not like the lions you probably see now in the local zoo, right, where they're kind of dumbed down, they're kind of docile, they're not as strong as they used to be, they don't hunt the way that they used to hunt, because what Esau does, he keeps them in a docile, dumbed down state, right? But the point is, just to paint a picture of the way the situation was, Daniel was in a situation where he needed help, right? He needed somebody to intervene for him, and the Lord sent Habakkuk to intervene on his behalf and protect him and look over him and feed him, right? I think there's a scripture that says, my servant shall eat, right? So just to show another side, and even remembering some of your own experiences too, right? So calling those and remembering those also, right? But the point is, there'll be a lot of miracles taking place in that time, but there's going to be a lot of our people, being judged, for the way they dealt with the prophets. There's going to be a lot of the wicked things that they have done. It won't be expunged. It won't be forgotten. But it would be remembered to reward them according to the deeds that they had, right? So, not a lot of our people, as the last verse says, not a lot of our people seek the Lord and love the Lord, right? As a matter of fact, I guess I'll end off with that last. What's it called? Isaiah 55. Since he said seek. Let me just end off with this one. All right, this is Isaiah 55:6, and it says, Seek ye the Lord while he may be found, and call ye upon him when he's near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the righteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him. And to our power he will abundantly pardon. Right? So not a lot of our people love the Lord, right? So they don't love the Lord, they don't love his son, they don't actually carry themselves and conduct themselves in a manner which is conducive to life. I think there's a precept that says, all they that hate me love death, right? So it shows in their works, it shows in their behavior that a lot of our people don't love, really and truly they don't love the Lord, right? So anyways, I just thought I would just share those two accounts just to show two different sides, but still circling back to that main topic, that main point of the Lord. We want the Lord to remember us in those times of trouble, right? So anyways, I sincerely pray that this lesson was edifying. I just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.